Hi, welcome. This is Dr. John DeMartini. This is one of the most amazing and inspiring shows that you can listen into. If you want to be on the edge of your seats, if you want to open up your heart, if you want to expand your mind, and you want to meet incredible people, stay tuned because you're just about to experience a transformative radio show that will change your life. And you're listening to the Dr. Pat Show that's coming up right next.
Welcome to the Dr. Pat Show. Talk radio to thrive by. Powerful, inspiring, and coming to you live, bringing you stories of people like you and me, busting through and living life full out. Get ready to dare to wonder what your life would be like if you knew you could not fail. Hey, everybody, welcome. It's so great to have all of you tune us in and turn us on. We've got a great show for all of you out there. Ellias Lonsdale's joining me here today, Lonsdale, actually. What we're going to be talking about is what I love to talk about. I love to talk about the stars. I love to be able to talk about, our fascination with them, right? Ellias has written a great book, 360 Degrees of Your Star Destiny, a Zodiac Oracle. And today I want to introduce you to what his work is about and what he's done. Kind of like a lot of us, you discover something in your life, you discover an impact. And then what you do is you look it straight in the face and there's something that pulls you that wants you to learn more. And I think you all know what I'm talking about. It's not always about the stars, or it's not always about, something else going on in the world, but you know what that feeling is like. And so he has been out there firsthand looking at this territory of traditional astrology, classes, books, and breakthroughs. There was a major turning point. And you'll hear about that today. And what happens when we look to the stars? Why have we been doing it since the inception of who we are? What is it that fascinates us so much and really creates a hunger for us to want to know more? What will we learn on this journey? That's what today's show is all about. And do the stars play a major role in our everyday lives? Benny, I was really struck by something the other day, and you and I have shared moments of this in our time together. Jamie is our producer at TTR, but Benny and I we've gone through the walk of life and have done shows and have been part of seeing people pass away way too soon. And Benny, the other day, I watched The Bodyguard again for the 50 millionth time.
It's a lot of times.
A gazillion times.
Could be your top five there. Top five.
Top five.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched it again, and I was in awe of Whitney Houston. Now, I've watched this movie before, but I had this moment where I asked myself, if she could have only ... And I just watched her brilliance in this movie and just had a moment of recognition for what an amazing talent she was. And then I ran into the same situation with Michael Jackson, where I'm sitting there and I'm going through a couple of exercises and Thriller comes on. You got that one? And you start to ask yourself questions about destiny. How is it that you watch people in your life? And I'm not even going to bring up Prince because I still to this day, I still don't think Prince and David Bowie are gone. I'm sorry. I think they're somewhere with Elvis. But what is it about this extraordinary life we live? And sometimes the conundrum about how a person's lives will take this turn and twist. But today's show with Ellias is about looking at the 360 degrees of our star destiny. How do we use this? How do we look at our sun sign and then other planets in our birth chart? How do we look at them? How do we interpret them? What sense do we make from them? And when we move into the progression of some things, like you've heard me talk about Mercury in retrograde. Mercury is our ruler, but Jupiter is my planet. And when I talk about these things, I know very little about them, but I'm intrigued. Today, how does astrology help us see deeply into our lives, our shadow, what we're questioning? And what is it about us in this journey that through these insights can make sense? You know, what is it about my 4 planets in Capricorn and my moon that explains the first 40 years of my life very differently than the next? But then again, I'm not an expert, but Ellias is. Ellias, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
We've been looking at the stars like when? Since the time of what? Since people could look up, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
A fascination with them, our interpretation of them, our stories of them, using stars for predictability of when to plant a crop and when not to plant a crop. Let's talk about the fascination, but more importantly, there's a reason that you have dedicated your life to this understanding. What was it in your life? What was it? What obstacle, what challenge were you faced with where you said, I need to understand this more and then help other people understand their own relationship with the stars? What was that?
I belonged to a commune in 1969 in New York City. And the commune broke up, as they always did. And when it did, it was like a shattering of everything. And a few months later, I was visiting another such commune in Boston. They call it Boston. And at this commune, they were believers in astrology. They weren't in the commune I'd been, but suddenly there was astrology everywhere. And somebody showed me in a book, Grant Luai's book, heaven knows what, my sun in Taurus and my moon in Sagittarius. And I knew nothing about astrology. And that moment, it just hit me. This person who wrote this book knows something about me I need to know. So I started to study it. And I traveled all around the country, hitchhiking and visiting communes and other communes and visiting ashrams and all such things. And my question was, what are the stars trying to tell me? So I was looking up at the moon everywhere I went. And I was starting to do readings for people, even though I didn't know anything. And the readings were tremendous, which didn't make any sense. Obviously, I had some star intuition going for me. And then when I started to really work with it, my whole life changed.
Oh.
Because all of the spiritual world started opening for me. And ever since then, it's been my spiritual path. Astrology usually isn't anybody's spiritual path. It can be an adjunct, but it isn't your spiritual path, but it is mine.
Mm.
And what that means is that I don't divide it up into a mental thing over on the side. It just permeates everything. I'm given guidance. I'm part of vaster worlds. You know, I live the stars. And this has been happening now since 1970, well over 50 years. And all throughout, even when my mate died in 1993 and my entire life completely changed, at every point, the stars have been my guiding light, and now more than ever.
Mm. You know, I love the way you describe it, and you described your own personal journey, but I even love more the way you talk in the language that you invite us to participate in. Right at the get-go from your book, what I loved about this is, you know, the notion of activating the planets, just right out of the gate. And, you know, when I started to read this and I started to think about this is a new way to see things for me.
Yes.
And, you know, I've been doing this almost 2 decades and I've read a lot of books and I've looked at a lot of things. But when I picked this up, I had a different sense of understanding. So it was really clear to me that this isn't just a book you've written. This is a body of work that has been your living, breathing essence. And it explains things in ways that a lot of things don't get explained, right? And I joke a little bit about the first 40 years of my life, of course, with my moon in Capricorn and then a bunch of planets in Capricorn. So I got Capricorn and Sagittarius all up here in the right stuff, right quadrant. And, you know, and I look at that and I joke about having this interesting personality, of course, with Taurus rising. And I think about in the book, what you're inviting us to understand. What is it about activating the planets that becomes so important? It's the invitation opening of your book.
Well, you see, the planets are activating us all the time. And, you know, it's like they're the dynamic, the spark that ignites us. So activating the planets means that you interact with them. You bring them toward you. You become awake to what's happening. And then you discover that you're not alone and you're not just doing your own thing, that you're in this kind of cosmic reality that's also bringing you through to the earth, and that it is so enlivening and so empowering that it almost is too much for anybody. I mean, it's never too little. It's not mild and modest. It's just an overwhelming inspiration and encouragement, really.
You know, it's fascinating. I want to share this little story before we go to break and then we'll come back. Is I was sitting here, I think it was last week, and I just had this odd feeling, just really odd, you know, just like, oh, like something happened. And I just started to Google Jupiter. And interesting, what I found was, which not many people are talking about, some kind of meteor, asteroid, I don't know what it was, crashed into Jupiter.
Yes.
And I looked at that and I thought, man, this is really eerie. You know, why would I even think about Jupiter? You know, I pay a lot of attention to Jupiter, probably more than I should. But that was such an interesting feeling for me when I saw the pictures of this. And it's just like, how did that happen? And there was such a draw to it. When we come back, I would love to talk with you about what happens when we decide to take a deeper look. What happens when we look at the star sparks and try to understand or make sense of our lives? How can astrology help us? We're going to take a short break, everybody. When we come back, really fabulous book. And by the way, if you've got any questions for Elias, look, 1-800-930-2819, give us a shout. When we come back, we're going to take a deeper look at some of these signs, take a look at the planets, take a look at what it means. But the beautiful way that this book is written, so you understand, for example, parts of Taurus, you know, a red garnet ring. There are things in this book that you just didn't know about. Let's take a short break, everybody. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody, welcome back. It's so great to have all of you tune us in and turn us on. Thank you so very much for doing that. It's fascinating. 360 degrees of your star destiny, a Zodiac oracle. Ellias Lonsdale joining me here today. Ellias, before we go any further, how do people get a copy of the book and how do they find out more about you? Let's get that out there.
Well, the book, you know, you can get it through Amazon and all those usual places. It should show up in bookstores too, if you live in an area where there's bookstores, which makes you very fortunate these days. And you can order it through there. My website, which is stargenesiswisdom.com, you can do just about anything through that as well. I'm more concerned with people, how should I put it, diving deep into the book. I know they can find it. It's easy to find. It just came out the end of last month.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you. But it's a book that will kind of open the world for people. It's most of all, it's an oracle for a lot of people. You know, you just open it at random, or you various techniques, and you have this oracle that actually tells you what you need to know about what's happening and your life right now.
Mm. You know, I love being able to talk with you about this. And first, let me thank you for joining me on the show today. And I want to just tell everybody, when you go to stargenesiswisdom.com, it's an amazing site. But the other thing you're going to find is there is a 3-night teleclass you can download. I mean, there's just so much that Ellias is bringing to the forefront here. And so please take a look at it. There's also teleseries, recordings, you know, looking at frequencies, right? I love this. I love the conversation about the Great Return, but more importantly, let's talk about the book for a little bit, because one of the things I love as I went through the book, I mean, one thing led me to ask another question, which led me to ask another question, which led me to ask another question. But let's just talk about the comment that you made before. I mean, honestly, it did. I found myself with my chart, like looking and then going to the book and then trying to put it all together. But you said something interesting to me during the break. You said if you're looking at your chart, right, you don't take the actual degree in the chart. You have to bump it up one. Can you talk about that? Did I get that right?
Yes. So I use the example of, let's say your sun was in 1705 Sagittarius. That would be 18 degrees. Even if it was in 1701 Sagittarius, it would be 18. And of course, it was
mine's
1740.
1319.
So that would be 14. And that's a degree that's very important in my life. I can explain it in a moment. But yeah, and so we always go to the next. That's the rule. And that means that it's kind of like each degree is an open portal into what's coming next. Everything is oriented toward opening further rather than going backward. Everything is about going forward.
I looked at this, and I want to go real time with you on this, because I want people to understand how intriguing this book is. And the bottom line for me, Ellias, on this is just the beginning. One of the things that happened to me as I started to read the book, I'm like, I gotta schedule more time with this man, because I started to look at this, and I did look at 13 because I didn't know, right? And so I looked at Sagittarius 13, right? Is that correct? Am I doing that right? 13, 19?
Yeah, you looked at 13 and you should look at 14. Yeah,
exactly. So I looked at 13. Let me just go for it for a minute. Can I use it as an example? Would you mind? All right. This is the coolest thing about the book. If you all call in and you want to have some insight into what's going on in your chart, maybe you have your chart in front of you. This is the coolest thing. I'll actually read from the book, right? And then of course Ellias will explain it. But I picked up the book. I was talking to Linda. This is kind of funny. Only a Sagittarius, I think, would think this is funny, right? Sagittarius 13, an embalmer at work on a mummy. And I read that and I was like, I love the way you descriptively just nailed some of these, right? Because most of the books that I've read, they don't really get at the core. They don't get at the heart-centered part of this journey. And I started to read this, and then I thought, I got to talk to you about that. But then I find out, well, wait a minute, it's really Sagittarius 14, a terrarium filled with carnivorous plants. And I thought, I think I want to stay with the mummy one. I mean, I honestly did that. I was like, wait a minute. Okay, now it's 14. I go from, working with the mummy one, which I really liked, but then I read this. This is so insightful to me. And let me just share a little bit of it. And then, by the way, just going to joke with you a minute about it. And then as I looked at it, I was so grateful that I wasn't 15. Just saying. It says we are captured. We are captured inside a world where every life form consumes every other life form. We take this as a given. We adapt to it so greatly that we no longer sense the cues our body gives us when we're in danger, when we've gone too far, when we've swept away by plans and ideas and lost it to this world. Then we need an extreme, I love this. You got to help me out here though, so I don't just go into like a tailspin. Then we need an extreme impact to reach us and turn us around. Boy, are you so right about that. Preferably some archetypal cycle of experience that matches the collective frequency of going too far with our own variation on the same theme. It's called obsession, just in my language. We need to get it all at once, that it's happening everywhere and right here, and that something has to shift fast, or else we'll be goners. Like, I'm thinking, like, is this man in my mind? Is this guy like sitting with me down in my, but here's what you say. I just love what you've done here. I hope people get this book. And then it says, the funny part is that as soon as we show up for this level of confronting reality, it changes into an entirely different story altogether. If that is not so my life. And it goes on to say, we had previously seemed to be self-evidently in attack, a terrible predicament, a lost momentum, turns right around and shows us that the gift is as bright as the outlook was bleak. Now we can embrace the gift as enthusiastically as we adapted to the blight. Then we crack through to a reality different from what we have known before in any world. This is a stunner. All the chaos is outside. All the turbulence cannot reach through to us. Instead, we are in the eye of the storm and we are cooking up a different world to be in. Our great challenge will be to empower that radical impulse unconditionally. Then we can discover that we have an answer, a creative response to what seemed to be just impossible. For we know that if we say yes, inside the great no, structures topple and the light returns. And I thought, that is so insightful. I think that when people read this, they'll be able to relate this to their lives. And can you talk about this for a minute? Because this is so part of a high-level synopsis of my life.
You want me to? Okay. That degree is about what happens when you get higher than what you thought you were up against. And then when you emerge, then you can go deeper under what you thought you were up against. And you discover that above it and below it, it's a different reality. And that surface drama that it describes at the beginning part is just a kind of sensationalistic thing that happens when we're impressionable and not quite there, not quite all there. But then when we get higher and deeper, then we discover we have a much greater range to us and that nothing really can do anything to us unless we insist upon it, and that it's completely up to us.
You know, I was thinking deeply about this, and I've read several others of these, and that's what I said. I'm totally intrigued about this. What I was really struck by is how amazingly accurate and let me just ask you about the interpretation of these, because I'd like to talk to you when we come back from break about a couple of others. But what I was really struck by is, as I was reading this, I flashed back on, I had to lose my job after 24 and a half years. That had to go. That had to happen. I was not meant to retire. I was meant to do something else. And if that didn't happen, I don't think I'd be here today. I'd still be back in New Jersey. Do you know what I mean? And I could point to different times like that. But what's most interesting is how many points in my life I found yeses out of no's. And I just have started to think deeply about that. I wanted to ask you this. I want to talk about it when we come back. People will be astonished when they read the book. When we come back, I'd like to hear from you. What has astonished you most about your discovery, about what you've learned, and about what the guideposts might be for people listening to the show? Because there's so much information and richness in this that I'm telling you, this has just blown me away at how much you've been able to put to words where many people have not. Let's take a short break, everybody. The book is 360 Degrees of Your Star Destiny, a Zodiac Oracle. If you happen to have your chart up and you could tell us, like, where's your sun and what the degrees are, maybe we can have some fun with you. 1-800-930-2819. When we come back, I got a question. How do we read the solar return? Does that have a basis for anything? You know, does the time that we're in now and where the planets are and will be, can they become guideposts? And what is it about those early years now that may make sense? Stay tuned. That and much more. Great book. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody, welcome back. It's so great to have all of you tune us in and turn us on. You know, I love this. I love this book and I love what Ellias does. Please, I want you all to make sure you know how to get a copy of the book. But more importantly, it really is fascinating to really take a look. And I mean this, take a look ahead and look at, you know, what are some of the things that Ellias is bringing forth. If you go to stargenesiswisdom.com, not only will you find the book, you'll find teleclasses, you'll find ways to connect, you'll be able to schedule readings. You know, Ellias, you and I were talking during the break, and we were having a Jupiter moment during the break. And I was telling you about this sense I felt, and you were sharing something that really hit me hard. And let's talk about this in the context of how the planets move, how they change, right? From birth to maybe a solar return. But that date that you mentioned, July of 1994, is that what you said? July 16th?
16, yeah.
Okay. Do you know what happened in 1994 on that date?
In what
I got a
sense?
letter from that doctoral school, that program. I had been on a waiting list. I never thought I'd get accepted. I got an acceptance letter and had to show up at that school in 1 month, Claremont in California. Never expected it. I wrote it off. It was a giant no. I was riding my Harley and having coffee in Seattle with my dog. And I was at a lost moment in my life. I didn't know where I'd go. And that letter. It's fascinating. And you explained that Jupiter on that date, you knew something was going to happen. Let's talk about Jupiter for a moment and then we'll go to the phones, because you shared something so insightful. It's exactly what I was feeling. Tell us about the planet Jupiter. And Jupiter is only one planet. I mean, there are more planets than Jupiter. But it's an interesting, challenging time for Jupiter, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, I believe that Jupiter right here at the end of summer 2021 has just gone through a huge change. And as it did that day in 1994, and there was another date, I think in 2009, a similar date, in fact, the same day, July 16th, 2009. But this one, what I believe is happening is that Jupiter has lost its power to get all the way through to us, because we have so many influences at work in the world right now that are against our evolution, against who we really are. So we're getting distracted, lost in all kinds of places. I'm not going to talk about that, but we all know it all too well. And so Jupiter is kind of getting stirred up to give us a new impetus forward to where our consciousness can start to open the space ahead and not be so bogged down in what's not working.
Yeah. I love how we can pinpoint and get a full expression of events through the book and through understanding it. For people that may be just tuning in, let's talk a little bit about the book, and then we're going to go to the phones. We've got a caller calling in. But you've written this book in a way where you literally pinpoint, right? That's why it's called 360. You literally pinpoint a snapshot in time, like we just did with my birth chart, right? And everybody that's listening, they'll be able to go and they'll look us up. Is it primarily for the sun?
No,
Thank
no.
you. Yeah.
Traditionally, it used to be. That's how they used to look at it 100 years ago. No, I don't think so. The sun is the leading light in your life, but every planet has a major thing to tell you. And sometimes Mars will be the one that tells you the most because that's the one you're really going with in your life. Could be Venus, it could be anything. Easily could be the moon.
And so this is why I said when I opened up the book and I pulled out my chart, I just got completely immersed. I mean, I went from my sun sign to my moon sign. And for me, when I looked at this and I thought, wait a minute, my moon, there's my moon. It's that degree. It's in Capricorn. There's where it is. And I started to look at it. I was totally fascinated. But for people, they may not know that when they look at this, they need to go ahead. So we're going to have some fun. We've got a great caller calling in. We've got Gretchen. I can't wait to hear what Gretchen has to say. I think we've got Gretchen, right, Benny?
Correct. Gretchen, are you there?
Hi, Gretchen.
Yes, I'm here. Hi
Hey,
there.
how can we help you
Thanks for my call.
today?
I have my astrological chart pulled up.
Okay.
And, I'm looking at it, so I'm wondering what you'd like to know and what you could possibly tell me about
Okay.
myself.
All right. So if you're looking at your chart, Elias, help us out here. When you're looking at your chart, for example, you can find your sun sign, right? You know, the little sun.
Yes.
Okay. And then there are numbers,
Mhm.
right? There's like a 19 with the little circle around it or something, and then a 13 with like a little single quote.
Mhm.
Elias, tell us how to explain that and which number Gretchen's going to need for us to talk about.
Well, Gretchen, do you see your sun degree? Can you read it?
Yes, 21 degrees 48, so it would be 22.
Yes.
Sun in Libra.
What sign is that?
Libra. I was born on October 15th, so my son's in Libra.
Okay,
21 degrees 48.
You probably don't have this book in front of you, but I do. And Libra 22 is an ancient glass vial, perfectly preserved.
Yeah.
Wow.
Ancient glass vial, perfectly preserved. What? Just in the simplest way, what do you feel when you hear that?
Then I need to fill the vial up.
Yeah.
But it would be empty, and I need to fill it up.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because it's not broken. It's perfectly preserved, and it's been around a long time.
Yeah.
It feels like a vessel, or it should hold a potion, perhaps. That's what I said when you said that. That's really powerful.
Yeah, one sentence from our description, just one sentence, is they are being trained in a great art.
I love that.
There's an art to it. And if you study this, in the book, you'll just see that it gives you a path to follow, a way to be fully who you are.
Wow. That's wonderful. Yes. Do you need to know my moon or any other planets or anything, or is it you just
Well,
start from
yeah, let's take one more.
zodiac sign and go
Let's
from there?
take your moon. What's your moon?
Yeah, what's your moon?
Sagittarius, 12 degrees 03.
1203. Okay, so that's
13 is my
13
lucky number, so that works.
That's the
That's
very
13.
that's the
Yeah.
13 that you were looking at. Yeah. So the symbol there is, and as she mentioned already, Pat mentioned, an embalmer at work on a mummy.
Yep.
And
Wow.
I'll just read you the first sentence, which is old thought forms, ancient wisdom, and fresh experiences all show the same picture from different sides. Old thought forms, ancient
Wow.
wisdom, and fresh experiences all show the same picture from different sides. So it's like you're in this energy that is coming to itself again and again, and it's always the same, and yet it's taking you somewhere very different.
Wow. That's really powerful. The first part is old thought forms and the last is fresh experience. What's the middle one?
Yeah, it's ancient wisdom.
Ancient
So,
wisdom.
yeah, so when you refer to ancient, when you tune into ancient wisdom, it will tell you the same thing that fresh experiences show you. In essence, everything's speaking to you and showing you the same thematic weaving. That's the mummy, it's like you're in the these wrappings of the mummy. Everything's wrapping itself around you and taking you where you need to go.
Yeah. One of the lines from here, if I could just read it to you so you get a sense of that. And there are a couple things. It says, ancient wisdom reveals that on the inside, this picture is almost reversed. Death is no stranger, no invader, no despoiler. Death is the intimate companion of life. And if we give death its true place, we'll be guided to integrated life and death within something that moves beyond these opposites. I love this, moves beyond these opposites and where they can go when life and death renew and fertilize each other. The next paragraph, though, is really revealing. And I read this before because I thought this was my number. And honestly, I just looked at my chart again and I'm just shocked at how I misread my chart. But then it says fresh experiences offer us new pathways to explore, right? This is so Sagittarian. Right. And it says these are instant variations on the theme of working through death and finding life inside death's jaws. And I love this. I love the idea of this because, death isn't always death of a physical thing. We go through these. Exactly. And then here's the punchline for me for this particular reading. It says the degree weaves path of involvement through some very dark old territory into light that cannot arise any easier way. It's confounded track on which to stay clear. The curves, the surprises, the reversals and the returns are wild to take up. We are asked to let go of every fixed idea and to free past ghosts of every kind. We are ushered into the astounding miracle we will never believe until we're right there in the super clarity that comes at death's door. When it's all over, it's ready to begin. When everything falls apart, the deeper pattern can come together. As we lose what we thought we had, we gain access to the missing place. I mean, isn't that fascinating?
It's really beautifully written. And is that written by you, Elias? Or is it
yes, this is in his book.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. It means so much because, especially Dr. Pat, when you said something about changing a career after 24 years, I'm about to hit 24 years of a career that I am ready to I can't do it anymore because it's not me.
I know.
That's why I said I have to call because it's just like too much.
I know. And, what's fascinating about this is what, we just started to talk about the fact that we can take a look at the chart and every planet, Elias is saying that every planet has meaning, right? And what's really interesting is I made a mistake in looking at my chart. So this is fascinating to me. I'm a little, what is the word? What do we used to call it? Learning challenge, dyslexic. So I reversed the numbers. So here's what I just discovered. I'm not 13 degrees. I'm actually 19 degrees Sagittarius. And
Oh.
so that's 20. But it's fascinating because as you start to read this, and 20 is different. So what I read you is exactly from the book. I didn't summarize or paraphrase.
Right.
So that has to have a powerful
Wonderful.
message for you.
And so you can go through all your different planets and get a reading through the book.
Oh, it's fascinating. It's just incredible. I mean, I went back after discovering that I just read on air the wrong degree, and I read Sagittarius 20, the changing of water into wine. And I started to read this, and it so represents where I am today. It just so represented where I am today, and so these words that Elias has written and the way he's written it. I mean, I've read a lot of books. This is just so beautiful. Do you know what I mean? I mean, look, this is the changing of water into wine, just to give you a sense. It starts out blessed, surrounded by every opportunity in the world, granted to meet in life, which can be revitalized and restored and reawaken what was lost, stuck, and stopped. I mean, I created crust busting. I have a domain called Unstuckable.
Right. And doesn't the heart chakra mean unstuck, unstruck as well? When you think about it, Unstuckable is your website.
That is one of the domains I bought when I first started to do the show. The show was originally crust busting your way to an awesome life because I was so stuck in my own life. That's the best I could do. And, Elias, your book, I mean, Gretchen's right. The words that are in here are just, I've never read anything quite like this to help us understand the full embodiment of us.
Phrase alone
of this
is says it all.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
changing water into wine. Period.
I love it. Gretchen, thank you so much. I hope you get a copy of the book, because I'll tell you, if you're like me, you couldn't put it down. Like I was like, oh my God, I get it. I was almost late for my show.
I grab it on the website, Ellis's website, Star Genius Wisdom.
Yeah, stargeniuswisdom.com.
All right. Thank you so much
you,
for
Gretchen.
everything. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for calling in. Isn't that funny that I reversed the numbers on my chart?
Yep.
I'm learning different, so I would do that a lot. Actually, I dialed the wrong phone number. That's how I started my show 18 years ago. I literally dialed the wrong phone number. But these words are so beautifully written. I mean, can you talk about, I know we've got a few minutes left. It doesn't matter what page I go to. These are powerful explanations. What's your vision for people that are experiencing this book and your wisdom? What's your vision for us?
I feel that we're at a huge verge that the Jupiter impact suggests, but there's other things too. We're at a huge verge in the evolution. And what we need is to focus on seed ideas, living impulses that are going to take us forward from here, because we have a massive amount of influence trying to pull us back or tending to pull us back. And we need this kind of progressive evolutionary dynamic to take us forward. And to me, it's a matter of a kind of intimate engagement with our own real destiny. And I feel like that's, I've been working on this forever, but now's the time we need it the most.
Yeah.
It comes out into the world now.
I'll tell you, it's so powerful. I didn't read Sagittarius 20 out loud. And I didn't read it out loud because I started to read it a little bit. I read really fast, by the way. I don't know how that happened, given the fact that I do have a little learning disability, as they once called it once upon a time. I now know it was a total gift for me. The kind of thing that I do was great in my doctoral program because I'm great at concept and processes. But I started to read this and I just started to tear up a little bit here. That must be a sign. I just did. I started to read this. given a charge of inner world's power upon our life-giving essence to offer with hope and enthusiasm is the most obdurate situations, not put off by coming up against tremendous outer and inner stuff to cut through. No kidding. Just knowing there is a force, there is a way somehow. Bearing treasures that are priceless, offer the keys to the kingdom. It's simply a matter of celebrating the living spirit as supreme in all things. I don't start my day without honoring spirit. I thank spirit at least 70 times a day in my mind. But that hasn't always been my life. That's what I find so fascinating. You say we are entering the mystery of soul remembrance. What does it mean when we can recall a fragment fashion of all good and essential things and can never forget them? Not only is this powerful, but I am on your website scheduling a reading with you, because I think people will find when they read this book, you get them. You're bringing a knowledge and a wisdom that helps people understand, as Gretchen said, at the heart chakra level. Ellias, I can't thank you enough for joining me here today. I'd love to know your personal message, what you'd like to leave us with, and thank you for sharing a lifetime of work that is so vital and important in the world today. What's your personal message?
This is the time in your life, not any other time, but this is the time in your life. And we are all here together. And it seems like we're fragmented and polarized and isolated. But when you go deeper and higher, you find that we are together at this time and we can bring each other through. And it isn't going to be anywhere near as horrible as they say it is, not unless you insist upon it, because we can do this. This world is going to be a true world again. This is what we're here for.
Thank you so very, very much for sharing a lifetime of work. I know what it's like to come out and share this and be fully present as you are. And the words, Gretchen said it best, the way that you've captivated the heart energy spirit of what we have looked towards for more than we can remember about humanity. It's just so beautifully done. What a gift you are to the world. Thank you so much for being that.
Thank you very much for having
me. We didn't get to Benny's chart, but maybe we'll do it next time. I hope Ellias will come back. Please, all of you out there, get a copy of the book. I think Jamie's showing pictures of it. There it is right there. You can also schedule a reading with Ellias as well. 360 degrees of star destiny. It's so beautiful. I'm going to have to read this in my meditation time and just fully embark on it. Thank you all. We'll see you in a minute.